folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune. Well, when you eventually hear that tune, because it means you're in for a treat. It's another week of the RecPoker podcast. I have the best freaking job in the world. I get to hang out here on Monday nights with my friends and talk about poker because I joined RecPoker. I joined RecPoker back in 2019 as one of its first premium members, and now they let me host the podcast. Just goes to show what you can do when you join a positive and encouraging, fun-loving, recreational group like we've got here. You're going to hear about RecPoker tonight. You're going to hear about Pocket Queens tonight. You're going to hear about the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino tonight because they're our sponsors and we could not get by without them. You're also going to hear about some other fantastic members of the RECing Crew here because, like I said, I'm Jim Reid, Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on Twitter. You get used to hearing my voice on Monday nights because they let me host the podcast, but I am just one of the crew, the village, the gang that makes all the magic happen here at RecPoker. If you want to find out more about me and the other members of the RECing Crew, you can head on over to rec.poker/crew. But just listen up because you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the show.
Well, I am Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the Poker Stars home game.
My name is Joe Coolis, and you can find me on Twitter at JoeCoolPhD, cool with a K, and as Elvita11 in the home game.
And I'm John Somsky. I'm Poker Geek MN everywhere.
Kim Kilroy. I am PetFat_33 on Twitter. I am Fergie56 in the home game.
And like I said, it was important to thank our sponsors because most of what we do here is free. RecPoker is a largely volunteer-based organization, but we've got a fantastic premium membership, and we love the support of our premium members. Your $15 a month makes a big difference. And if you want to go check out what we've got, head on over to rec.poker. And if you use the code RecPoker at checkout, you can get your first month for only $5. So as I mentioned at the top, we're going to be talking to a couple folks from the Pocket Queens study group. I also want to just mention that if you stick around to the end of the show in the YouTube chat here, we're going to be having our weekly food bank drive. We're going to try and raise some awareness for food insecurity in our own community. And we're also going to be highlighting, again, every Tuesday night, you can come and win a prize by playing in our free Play Money home games compliments of 100K Studios. So we'll talk about that a little later on tonight. So Pocket Queens, the study group, I'm happy to be welcoming Victoria Livshitz and Dayanna Ciabaton. We're going to talk to these two fantastic folks in just a moment here. We're going to be talking about the landscape of poker for women. We're going to be talking about studying in community. And we're also going to be talking specifically about ladies' events and I'm not even sure how to describe the sort of intricacies and nuances of how to arrange these events, these safe space events for women to play when you don't want to be so exclusive that not everyone can join, but obviously you have to draw the line somewhere. And I think this is something that has come up time and again, very recently highlighted by Dayanna's second place finish in a ladies event that I'm sure most of you have heard about by now on social media, if not otherwise. But first of all, let me just say, Victoria, Dayanna, thank you so much for coming on the RecPoker podcast. It's great to be finally talking to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
So, Dayanna, you're a board member at the Pocket Queens study group. Victoria, you're the resident pro. Let's start with you. How did the Pocket Queens study group get started, and kind of how would you describe it here in the poker world?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'm not a pro, so probably need to correct that. But the founder and the spiritual leader, maybe a bit. So just a little bit about myself. I'm fairly new to poker, meaningful poker. I've kind of fallen madly in love with the game about a year and a half ago. I am a professional entrepreneur. I have had a Silicon Valley tech career, and then I started many companies. I still very much do. There's several companies that I still run, even though I wish I could run away with the circuit and just do poker 24/7 and shed every other responsibility. That's unfortunately not in a card, so to speak, at this point in time. But I play a lot as much as possible. I study a lot. It's been just an epic journey. With that said, I've had some successes. I have some amazing mentors. I am out to prove that there is a significant degree of transfer learning that kind of happens, that somebody can join poker late in life with a combo of other experiences, which is I grew up playing chess. I studied mathematics and have done a lot of math in my life in different forms. As an entrepreneur, I know very well how to play high stakes games, how to manage risks. And there are strategy games in the business world that I think dwarf poker by its complexity. So now I'm kind of excited to see where somebody with my background take poker aspirations, if you will. So having said all that, the story of Pocket Queen starts right this time about a year ago, right before World Series of Poker. This was my first, full World Series of Poker event. I kind of started playing poker, in the World Series 2021. And going into this, there was some thread between prominent women pros looking to pull some money together to provide seed for a few women, basically free rolling the ladies' World Series event. It's a 1K buy-in. I was asked by Chrissy B if I would like to donate basically, a grant for somebody to get a seat. I said, sure, wrote a check. And then a little bit later, Katie Stone, I believe, came and said, why don't we provide women who got the seats some one-on-one training? And before the event, and I said, sounds good, sign me up. So I was assigned to, I think, 3 people or so. And we met for a lecture. I think it went well. And after the event, one of the women by the name of Rachel reached out to me and said, Victoria, me and 5 of my friends, we're all love poker. We live in Los Angeles. Would like to take study poker to the next level. Do you have any advice for us? Can you help us? I don't have enough stuff going in my life between running 4 companies and
it doesn't sound like it.
Trying to learn to actually play this game. So I said, sure, sounds like a worthy cause. And we've formed, and I said, if you want to do this right, let's do this right. So we formed a study group. Initially, I think it was five people and me, something along these lines. We've created a Discord server. I started teaching Wednesday night weekly theory lectures. We just started with basics of the GTO. This was something very new to, I think, all of them. People have been playing poker by and large for 20 some years. But this is the first time they decided to get serious about it. We started exchanging hand histories. And then somehow they told their friends and they came. And then they told their friends and they came. And then we started to, publish some of the things that were going on Twitter. And then more people came. And now I think we're approaching 150 people. It's completely organic. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. It turns out that it's completely free. That's one of the, basics of it. It's just a free organization. There is no, money attached to anything. It's run by volunteers. I certainly volunteer. And then the other thing that I was able to do is I play myself. I play high stakes. I play some of the most prestigious events that there is out there. I have now a group of friends that are elite poker players that I reached out and they said, I'm doing this thing. Would you like to help? And there was just this overwhelming support. People said, how can I help? And I said, the biggest thing you could do is come and deliver a 90-minute lecture. And if 50 pros do this once a year, we're going to have just absolutely amazing content program. That's really probably have never been done really at that scale. And again, it's completely voluntary. And people said, sure. And so rather than delivering lectures myself, I started mostly spending my time kind of recruiting people to come and do this. And we have just amazing speakers. We had Chewy, Kevin Rabicho, we have Anthony Hu is talking tomorrow. I just got confirmation of Dinax coming in 2 weeks. And this is just absolutely amazing content that goes a long way to help our members to get better. Yeah, and then it turns out that all these women that are joining, and I'd love to tell you some of their stories. We should really have them on the podcast because it's amazing. We have young people who are just starting, their life, let alone their poker careers. And we have literal grandmas. We have professionals who are, low stake grinders making their way through, professional poker. And we have people who are moms of 3, moms of 4. They've loved the game their entire life, but their lives belong to their kids. They're soccer moms, right? Their wives. They have careers, and then a lot of them basically dream of the time where they can retire so they can play poker full time. These are massive groups of people who love poker that I think poker community completely misunderstands and does not understand that they exist and have no idea just how big that group is. We have people who have started learning poker recently. We have people who are in our group who are, you could call them, I guess, serious amateur or maybe semi-professionals, or people who are amateurs who want to aspire to become professionals. A lot of them have retired from other things. We have people who've retired from being career New York State detectives, nurses, people who had career in Wall Street and kind of retired during COVID and went to play, relatively small cash games and, making enough money and having freedom to say this is the best decision of my life. We have somebody from, I believe, Puerto Rico, who is a professional stand-up comedian making transition to poker. This story is just absolutely amazing, one after another. And that group of badass women, a lot of them with a ton of professional experience, just completely run this organization better than most of the companies that I've been a part of. We have somebody responsible for website, pocketqueens.poker. We have social media presence. We have somebody who manages lectures. Somebody manages calendar. And then once people started to, and a common theme is always, this has been such a lonely journey. It is so cool to be part of a community. As much as we are a study group, we are probably even more sort of a support group. People sweat each other. We have a channel. Our Discord is a piece of beauty. My goodness, there's just so much going on there. It's so well organized. And there is kind of channels for everything. So we have a channel called Hot Mess, where we can talk about anything. There's channels about mindset. There's channels about magics. And sort of everything in between. And obviously, when you're part of a community, learning happens by osmosis. And so a lot of people are learning for the first time, not only strategy, but how to use tools. So we discuss the intricacies of GTO Wizard versus Ruse versus Spire versus anything else, who's got the best ranges, who's got this or that. People learn how to use these tools. Many of them learn the word HUD for the first time, and then they go get a lecture on how to use HUDs. And the next thing everybody wants to run a HUD. And so forth. And then the next is, of course, economic opportunity. That's something that underpins everything, which I think is very, very poorly understood in the community. People always make the conversation about women-specific events, about sort of disparity between sexes, and they immediately turn into sort of intellectual disparity. Oh, but of course women are not as good in poker. I mean, look at the results. It's a male-dominated industry, right? They must be inferior. And then that, of course, sparks the conversation in its own right. What people completely neglect to understand is that what we see happening in poker is what happens in any other male-dominated field. And I personally feel strongly about it because my entire career was in the male-dominated fields and industries. I started in the early 90s in Detroit, automotive. It was as male-dominant as you can imagine. I was often the only woman in a room. I was often half the age of everybody else. And, in early 90s, it was unfathomable to believe that there could be a CEO of GM, CEO of Lockheed Martin, who's a woman, right? But times change. I've been on Wall Street good part of my career. It was incredibly male-dominated environment at the time when I was there. You could argue that it still is, but not nearly to the same extent. I've been to Silicon Valley. It was also traditionally both on the entrepreneurial side and on the VC side, a place where very few women had, any place of impact. And this has all changed dramatically. So it is very obvious to me that poker is changing and will change. Poker is worse. It's literally one of the absolutely worst places that I've seen with respect to women. And it is not surprising at all then that the representation of women in live events is less than 5%, although it should be shocking to everybody, because representation of women in gaming is certainly not that. It's parity or more. Representation of women on online games, I think latest statistics is something around 60%. Representation of women playing poker online is something like north of 30%. And then none of us, or almost none of us, really want to show up for live events because it just sucks to be a woman in these events. And I don't think men, by and large, really understand why. Some of it goes deeply to social barriers and interactions, some to economic. Because if you think about this kind of a classic, I don't know, let's just call it classic family. A husband and wife, kids, both might have some interests and hobbies. Who is more likely to be able on a Thursday night leave home and go to the local casino, to the card room, to relax and play poker? Who's got extra $500 or $1,000 completely discretionary, right? To just pull out on a random evening to go enjoy it herself, right? I mean, people just don't think about it at all. And then if you look at the kind of a dichotomy around on-ramp into professional poker, I think this is where community and communal forces are so powerful. I hang out a lot with young pros, and that keeps me young. They're age of my kids, of my son who's youngest, 23. And the story is always the same. They started grinding, they were teenagers, first it was online. Then at some point in time, they decide to quit school or college. And then what do? They usually move to Vegas, move into some kind of a poker house with a bunch of buddies where they can grind together and talk poker 24/7 and pay, share rent and share everything, right? And they learn together and they come up together. Now think for a second, what happens if there is a girl who wants to do the same? First of all, it's pretty hard for guys. There's so much stigma, usually around parents, around family. It's not exactly a most approved choice. Well, it's 10 times as hard if we're talking about a young girl. And then let's just say she says, okay, but I want to do it. She ain't exactly going to go to Vegas and find a poker house, right, of which she could be a part of. It's just everything is so freaking harder. Anyways, I've been rambling for a long time. You might have questions about it, but all of these things are kind of combining to me. I've seen all this, and I've seen this tape, and I've seen how other industries have changed, and I know poker will. And why not put some time to make it happen a little faster?
Well, no, I appreciate that. You speak to it very eloquently. This is a subject that we talk about here on the show and in our own teaching materials and here in our own community quite a bit, kind of equalizing that playing field a little bit. So it's great to get that perspective. We obviously thought about this a lot. We're going to get into a little more about that. Joe, you look like you had one question to jump in here.
No, I was just going to say that I think that to add on to it in terms of structural problems that come in terms of women entering the field with regards to time and finances and so on, you also have a fair amount of psychological biases that drive women essentially to self-select out. So there's something called diagnosis threat, which is a lot of people don't know what that is. But basically, if you take, for instance, a group of women and tell them at the outset, 50% of them, that they're bad at math, and tell the other 50% that not that information, the women who are told that they're bad at math will do worse on the math tests that you give them at that particular moment. And I think that a lot of times the entry is so difficult in poker to begin with. Plus, you essentially convince yourself, because what you're hearing in all these instances is, well, you're not very good at this, right? The men at the table are telling you that there's this idea that women are bad at games, which isn't true, but that's kind of in the environment. And I think that contributes and is one of the silent things that also kind of resists women going in.
Well, the men do tend to have a condescending attitude towards women. That's pretty pervasive, and obviously that's not very helpful. But I want to say that the biggest problem is just the representation is so small. Like once we get 5% to 15%, things will get a lot better. And then going from 15% to 30% is going to be so much easier. But when you are really, 5% is 1 out of 20. That's just, that's just awful. So yeah, it needs to get fixed. And I would argue that those who say, it's kind of hopeless, it's not happening, we've been doing it for 20 years, nothing have changed. Well, first of all, not much has been done. And second of all, it's changing. And if you think that it's not changing, you're looking at the rear view mirror, because the front view mirror, to me, shows incredible influx of women at all stages of being competitive. One of the reasons why I play in high stakes, and one of the reasons why I personally focus on getting more people into high stakes tournaments and leveling the playing field, is because we need role models. We need women who are legitimate crushers, and they come from time to time, but they're so far in between. I mean, for many years in today's modern scene, probably Chrissy B, right? Chrissy Foxen is maybe the only woman that have had some success, somewhat comparable to men. But look at the energy. We already have, I think, 3 women that are in the top 100 overall. I think we have maybe 4 or 5 who can get there by the end of this year. This is unheard of. It's like 5% representation at the elite level, right? That's super important, because women need to see that women indeed are not inferior. It's not like the rule, right? It's just a rule. It's just I personally believe that poker is actually very suited to women, and then women have some intrinsic qualities that are actually extremely helpful in this game, and level the playing field, level the participation. We actually see women outperforming men on average. We'll see how that evolves when this ratio change and levels even out, if you will. But yeah, you absolutely need women competing in open events and crushing it. And it's happening across the board. You cannot open Twitter on any given day without seeing several women taking down championships. What we've done better now is, I think, got organized so that we actually publish these results, because mainstream poker media certainly doesn't do anything to highlight women's successes. So we kind of took it into our own hands, and I think that marketing campaign works very well, both raising awareness in professional circles and bringing more women into sport.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, things are changing, as you say. John Somsky, you had something next, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so you mentioned that of several of the male-dominated industries that you've worked in, poker was the worst. So what is it, just that the ratio is the worst, or is there something about the environment that makes it particularly bad?
Yeah, well, the ratio is bad. The environment is, it's kind of most, at least American industries that I've been part of, evolve a lot over the last 20 years. And poker, and I don't really want to overgeneralize and offend unnecessarily, the community as a whole. But nevertheless, the kinds of things that you hear at the poker tables is something that you don't hear in the corporate America anymore. Maybe you would have in the 90s where I started, but you don't. I mean, our members routinely exchange, and we laugh our asses at the anecdotes that are happening. But it's not uncommon for men to flip 2 queens, and if there is a woman at the table, call it "look at them bitches." It's normal. And everybody else at the table will laugh at this. I mean, where else in America today can you imagine conversations like that happening? I can't. I've had a case where I was actually playing a high-stake cash game at Win. It was 5-10, the biggest game that they ran. It was in the middle of the night. The buy-ins were getting bigger. The straddle was on. So it was like the biggest game that I had running. And, as far as cash games go, they rarely played in the poker rooms as nice as Win, right? It's usually local casinos, lots of alcohol. People progressively get drunk and tongues loosen. So in this particular night, there were, lots of gentlemen that were not in possession of their facilities, I think, in a way that should be required when you're having a game like that. It's, by the way, very normal for them to see a female poker room manager and call her honey, or have masseuse ladies and treat them like they are, their servants. All that is part of very toxic culture, in my opinion. That's extremely disrespectful to women. But in this particular hand, I was involved in a hand which progressively got bigger and bigger by the river. The guy made a huge river bet. I was contemplating my options. He did the speech talk, was talking to me. And at some point in time, he was kind of pointing at his cards, looked at me, smirked, and said, "Honey, do you want to see my nuts?" Right? I mean, can you imagine these conversations happening in 22, 23, in any other place but poker? I can't.
Yeah, we every time we talk about this, it does seem that part of the problem is just that there is a systemic misogyny in humankind, and it just kind of gets brought out at the poker tables.
I think it's kind of the worst. Yeah, sort of. These are the pockets of things that have not, I think, adopted to the social norms that pretty much every other industry have adopted. Some combination of gambling and other stuff, I think, in some sense, either brings the worst or kind of holds the poker industry back.
Can I say something?
Please.
So one of the things that I've noticed about poker in general and women trying to get into poker is all of us that I've talked to at Pocket Queens, we have like an origin story. We've had to work really hard to find that home game. For me personally, my husband was invited to a home game. My husband doesn't play poker. And he said to me, "Oh, this guy, Tim, he invited me to the home game. Why don't you see if, you can go?" It took so much persuasion. I had to be the cool chick. Like, there were no other women. I ended up playing in this home game for, over 10 years. But like, as a woman, you have to love math. You have to love games. You have to be passionate about poker, and you have to go through these lengths that men don't. Because socially, when, as I was coming up, there were no women poker games. There were no home games that had women. And for guys, you don't have to want it that much. You just have to be invited for a Thursday night out with the guys. And I think part of the issue is, especially with, maybe men that are my age, middle-aged men, not as much as the young pros, of course, not talking about them. But they grew up with these home games where it was all guys, where part of the discord was talking about women in very disparagingly way, like just physical, talking about appearances and talking about whatever they're gonna, the locker room talk. So then they start at the poker room, and again, almost always it's just a bunch of guys. And so they're not filtering any of that. Then a woman shows up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, the amount of times the dealer has said, hey guys, there's a lady at the table, which is the worst thing you can say. You know, all we want to do as women is to be treated equally. We don't want any talk about the fact that we're a woman playing poker. We just want to play poker. We're there to take your money. You know, we just want to be serious about the game. And we don't get to do that because it's all about us being a woman. And it's aggressive comments, it's microaggressive comments, it's, you know, the dealers that, again, not saying they're doing it to be rude, they're not, but they're just people that are just saying the wrong things over and over and over. So the women that are actually showing up are having to deal with all of that because we love the game so much. But imagine if that wasn't there. And all of a sudden, women would like want to have a social poker night out. And these groups of women, instead of just getting these, like, in my opinion, these top elite math oriented gamers like Victoria, like Kim, like myself, instead of just having us, all of a sudden you could get the population, just like men, the whole population. We could have this group with the whole population of women that are going to the poker room on every Thursday night or doing home games. And it would grow the game by far more than anything else. But right now it's too toxic. It's too toxic for those women to put up with it.
Well, I know we're going to talk in just a moment. We're going to start talking about women's events specifically and setting up that kind of dynamic where you can avoid that sort of toxicity. Joe, you had one thing you wanted to jump in with before we move on.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting comment about the differences between corporate world and the poker world. And the corporate world did not go nicely into into the realm of treating women effectively. And all you have to do is go watch 9 to 5 again, that movie with Dolly Parton, and it'll give you an idea of what in a very short period of time things were like 30 years ago. But I just think that poker is not, in some sense, poker has to incorporate what is acceptable in the work world, given it's a place essentially of work, that women need to be treated effectively the same as is tolerated in employment settings. The stuff that goes on at a poker table, for one, shouldn't happen, because the dealers shouldn't have to put up with it. They shouldn't have to put up sexualized comments. They shouldn't have to put up all those things. But the casinos don't fear legal ramifications because we've kind of taken a hands-off approach. Whereas corporate has to worry that there's a lawsuit coming around the corner and they have to change and they have to educate and they have to do a lot of things that I don't think casinos are doing. And you're exactly right, is that there either has to be a mass of women sufficient in order to police itself. Men at the table have to make a decision that they're going to make some sort of fundamental change and stand up for women at the table. Or from a legal standpoint, there has to be punishment for the casinos for allowing this sort of issue to come forth. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Is a comment I've made a number of times. I'm the chair of the employee threat assessment team. So we see the kinds of behavior that you're seeing from people continuing to today in the location that I work. But the problem is we're going to get them and we're going to drag them out and we're going to fire them if it happens. And so you have some sort of consequences that come because these are threats. These are threats against you. It makes you feel like you're going to be harmed, killed, or so on if you don't comply. Saying, do you want to see my nuts is nothing more than a power move to make you feel uncomfortable, to make you feel threatened, and to make you feel like your life is at risk in that instance. Now, you may not have, but that's what it's for. It's posturing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And to add to that, you don't even have to look at the female poker players at the table. Just look at this casual flirting that is considered completely normal by the poker players towards female dealers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, start there, right? There is just this overall acceptance of things that, to your point, corporate America have eradicated because, yeah, there is actually a danger of lawsuits. But for reasons that many people probably understand better than me. That's not happening in a poker world. You're not going to have a female poker dealer filing a complaint, HR complaint against the, drunk customers who are calling her honey and offering, half jokingly, whatever, take her home at the end of the night.
Mm-hmm.
So that was. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, in some sense, men often encourage that. And the last time I played live poker, one of the dealers clearly was trying to get a tip out of me and said that I was attractive, and so clearly she must be blind. But it was like accepted in a lot of respects by the men as like, it's okay, this is what we all want. But women don't want that. They don't want to be looked at in that particular regard because there's threat behind that statement, and it sexualizes you, and in most instances demoralizes people when they're having to put up with that at the table. So
yeah, so again, being as kind of a newcomer to poker, learning my way around, learning about the industry. My views right now is that it's kind of super backwards, and it definitely has very real reasons why there aren't more women in poker. But at the same time, I kind of know that it's a foregone conclusion that it will have to change. Everything else changes, and this changes too. Women are coming. Groups like Pocket Queen, and we're definitely not the only one, are putting women first. There's a lot of just incredible things happen when you allow people to find their tribe. And if there is one thing that I want to say about Pocket Queens, and I think why we all feel so privileged and so special, we sort of found each other tribe. And that was the missing piece. Once you have people finding tribe that they belong to, amazing things has happened. And it's not just that everybody motivates each other, so performance is going through the roof. It's, again, dealing with economic opportunity. For example, now members of our team are organized enough that they're renting Airbnbs and turning into poker homes around every major series. So now we almost getting this down to science. Now it's 150 people, covers every part of US. Now we have Canadians, we have some Europeans. We have people from our group going to, European events and whatnot. And we're starting, some people are volunteering and say, oh, I'm going to be a regional manager. I'm going to handle Northeast. I'm going to handle, Southwest. We're going to handle the West Coast. And we're getting organized, the money getting pooled, and we're doing it on zero budget. It's just incredible. I want to say one more thing just to kind of illustrate the power. And then I probably have to jump off and go do other things. But here's an amazing example. One of the things that I got a lot of people to do is play online. Again, people are coming in from that, not only not studying GTO, but many of them just kind of very traditional, recreational players who now understand they want to get ahead of the game. So they're learning to do this properly. And that's what a group like that does. So I got them to go and play micro stakes online. And for many, it's a new experience. And there's a crypto involved, which a lot of people don't know anything about. So anyways, there was this conversation back in December when one of the members wanted to play on ICR, and she asked me if I can give her $200. I say, sure, no problem. I transferred $200 to her on ICR, and we were going to meet for coffee. Never happened. 30 days later, she reaches out to me and says, I'd like to transfer you back $200. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, what happened? He says, well, I ran a 10X. I have two grand, and I'm happy to give it back. I'm like, whoa, you turned $200 into $2,000. First time opening accounts. Like, it's such a classic epic story, poker story, right? It's like, you have to tell it to the group. She's like, okay. So she goes on and does this little write-up on our Discord. Within 15 minutes, and her online handle is Frogger. Within 15 minutes, Frogger Challenge is born. So members of the group say, all right, the game is on. Turn $200 into $2,000. Who can do it faster? So people organize, create this challenge. Yes. You'll explain, all of this. But next time, we see that being blown up in 14 days. Next time, we see it blown up by 3x. And now we've got all these challenges going on where people are doing 10x bankroll and whatnot. Just think of the amazing power of nothing but this fun and supporting community. Dayanna, go ahead.
No, I was to this day, I'm the record holder for Frogger Challenge. I did it in 12 days.
Yes. Yes. See, this
Very
is the
proud.
thing.
Very proud.
We talk about this all the time here. Like we play for fun, but it's more fun when you win, right? Like we're all competitors. We like to have these challenges and to keep track of who's beating who and that kind of thing. So that doesn't mean we can't get along and do it in a respectful, competitive fashion. Just wanting to win doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it all the time, particularly not at the live tables. Victoria, I know you have to go, but thank you for sharing this time with us. Before you leave, I'm going to put the links in the show notes in case our folks are listening in the car or something. What's the website you'd like people to go to find out more about Pocket Queens?
Yeah, so the website is pocketqueens.poker. It's open to all women, people who identify as women. We're not gonna make any distinction whatsoever. You go online, you basically fill in the form, and then you join our Discord, and everything else happens from there. We also, and that's in a public view, we publish schedule of all events. Maybe you can show to your, even now, I don't know if you have a way of showing the screen, but you go to pocketqueens.poker. There is a schedule. You could see that we have a lecture every Wednesday. We have Anthony speaking on blind versus blind theory. We have Maria Ho coming the week after. We have Danielle Negreanu coming the week after. We're going to take holiday during World Series of Poker after that. And then I have a long list of pros, including people like Jeremy Osmos, Chance Cornish, Alex Foxen, who have agreed to deliver lectures to us. And so on Twitter, you have a handle. I send you email. It's just probably better to just show, but follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok. And play with us.
Well, I hope people do. And yeah, folks, if you're not able to write that down because you're driving or painting a wall or something, I will put those links in the show notes so you can find out more.
If I may, I have one call for action to the community. Help us. There are so many ways to help. Anybody who can, donate $200. That's literally going to go to seed somebody putting their first $200, to start their online journey. If you're a professional or specialist of any kind, come give us a lecture. It literally takes the village. We are completely free and volunteer based. So we've shown tremendous progress and results. So we've kind of created a platform where it's really easy to help women grow in poker. Just, drop me a message. I'm on Twitter, Victoria L_64. Just raise your hand, ask how you can help, and we'll find a way.
Right on. Well, I'm sure you're going to get a few people reaching out. The RecPoker audience is a group that likes to make the poker world better. That's how this whole thing got started. So I hope that folks do reach out and find their own way to make the poker world a little better. Victoria, thank you again. And
thank you very much for having me.
We'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
We're going to continue on with Dayanna here talking about. So we got a perfect segue here from what Victoria was talking about at the end. So she mentioned how the group is free. It's open to all women and anyone who identifies as a woman. And this is the crux of the next conversation that I want to have. We've talked about how to create more accessible spaces for women in the poker world. And it's not just women. There's lots of people that don't feel comfortable at live poker tables because a lot of the people there are jerks. But specifically when it comes to women, we've talked about having ladies events, the arguments for it, the arguments against it, the value that comes from it. And I think one of the points of tension is the sense that you want to regulate who can join, You'd like women to be able to play. You'd like also for people that identify as women to play. And that creates this kind of gray area where people can exploit that, and people who are bad actors, like men who identify as men, can come and join. And it's kind of hard to, I don't mean to minimize it, but it's sort of like moderation in a forum or something like that. Like you can't actually make a rule that's going to solve this all one and for all. You kind of need to have these case by case subjective decisions, which makes it very difficult and kind of politically problematic. So Dayanna, can you just tell us kind of in your words what happened at the Seminole, and sort of why it's such a great microcosm of this exact problem that we seem to face in the poker world?
Absolutely. Just to start though, at Pocket Queens, me personally, and at Pocket Queens, we have our board members have met. We've made this very clear. Trans women are always welcome. Trans women are women. That is just a fact. And we are all together on that. And absolutely, trans women should play women's events. A lot of times they don't feel comfortable. We have trans members at Pocket Queens, and we talk about it, and they don't feel comfortable. One of our members said, "Could you imagine if I won?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what would happen?" Unfortunately, right-wing media and right-wing politics is right now at war with trans people. And it's just, for whatever reason, this is kind of the big agenda. I personally was, somebody reached out to me and messaged me from Fox News to talk about this, which I didn't, because I thought it would get twisted, whatever I said. It's just such a hot topic that I don't understand why it's such a hot topic. But nonetheless, this story specifically got twisted because the man who entered, Dave Hughes, who entered the ladies' event at the Seminole Hard Rock, he had the worst intentions. He was a very toxic player, was very toxic to women. And there was no doubt that his intentions were to mess with the women. He thought he was better than the women. It was just like kind of, you know, misogyny all rolled up in one. That was him. So I actually had the very interesting experience because he was at my first table. And so I played with him, I would say for about 30 minutes, and the women at the table were not happy. Nobody was happy that he was there. One of the women said, "Why did you do this? Why did you join when you're not welcome?" And he said, you know, at first he said, "Oh, a friend, it was a joke, and a friend put me in as a joke." And then he said, "But I think I have an edge." Because you're women. I mean, he said that. So we just ignored him. I kind of made the joke. I said, okay, why don't we have a conversation about like our childbirth experiences? Trying to come up with something to make him feel uncomfortable. But
periods. Just talk about periods the whole time.
I did say that, but I didn't know if I could say that here, but I just said that. And we actually bonded. The 8 women that were at the table were bonding over our unhappiness that he was playing. And so we didn't let it get us down, but we definitely weren't happy. He was there, and when he got knocked out, We were high-fiving the woman that knocked him out, and we were all very happy. And it took about 25 minutes for, 20,000 chips at what we were playing, like 1-1. He was out in about 25 minutes. And we were very happy. He left. I did not think he was going to react because we made it known that he wasn't welcome. We told him, okay, if that was a joke, but let us tell you, like, you're not welcome here. Nobody wants a man. We explained it all to him. And he was gone for about 20 minutes, and I did not think he was going to revive. But then somebody said, oh, he rebought. And I was in shock because I couldn't believe that somebody that we had said, don't do this, that he did it again. And that's when Ebony Kenny, who, is an ACR sponsored pro, she's wonderful, always supports women. She said, okay, let's put a bounty on him. And then, he ends up busting again. But at that point, it had become, I wasn't at his table at that point. He was like at the other side of the room. But I think it had become like a little social media thing of this guy's entering. So they were like, okay, like, let's get some more dead money if you want to rebuy, it was very different than when he was at our table. And the women, like, they wanted the bounty. So they were like, okay. And I was disappointed at that point, but I didn't say anything because I didn't feel like it was my place. And I didn't think it would ever become a big deal because, I'm somebody, I have a Ruse subscription. I understand GTO poker. I study a lot. This was somebody who doesn't study. This is somebody who is, I wasn't worried about him as competition. And I'm sorry if that sounds bad, but he wasn't a very good player. So the third time is when he had the $300 bounty put on again by Ebony. Somebody matched it right away, so it was up to 600, and then I think fairly quickly got to around 750. And he realized that if he just went all in with 2 pair or all in with a hand that he knew was best, somebody would call him because there was $750. And he was able to accumulate chips because he had the bounty. And I didn't play with him again. It was kind of, people were talking about it like, oh, he's accumulating chips. He's got a, big stack. I didn't play with him again though until the final table. And at the final table, I witnessed a couple times, specifically, there was a young, really good player. Her name's Abby. I know she hangs out with Landon and
Abby
and
Merck
Matt
from Poker Power. Yeah.
Landon Tight. It's Abby Poker is her handle.
Abby Merck. She's one of the Poker Power instructors there, along with AJ Rudolph and them. Yeah.
She's a good player. He jammed a lot of big blinds. When we got to the final table, his bounty was at $2,100. And he must have jammed, I don't know, like 80 big blinds. And she called with ace 6 because the bounty was at $2,100.
Sure.
And she was the chip leader. And he had pocket 7s. And he doubled up, and then he was the chip leader. So that bounty made a huge difference. Abby is never, ever calling there with ace 6 if $2,100 wasn't the bounty. So the Ebony was still there. She was railing. And she made the announcement when we got to the final table. She said, listen, if he wins, let's hope he doesn't, but if he wins, second place gets the bounty. So I've studied ICM. I started doing the math, and I was a shorter stack, and I just went into survival mode. And I was like, I'm just going to survive till to second and pick my spots, play, tighten up and not worry about playing against him, so that's the way that I handled it. And I ended up getting second. He also at one point jammed, and one of our pocket queens, when we were the final 5 players, 3 of us were like old time pocket queens members. When I say old time, we had all been in since November. I think I was like the 12th member who joined.
That's great.
And they were there too. And so the 3 of us were together, and he jammed over a raise with Jack 6 offsuit into who was then the chip leader, Joy. She called with ace 10, and a jack comes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he then gets another huge stack. I didn't want the bounty at that point. I wanted her to win. That's how much we all wanted him to lose. I was like, I don't care if I don't get the bounty. I want her to win. But anyway, so I just survived. I got to heads up, and it was, he had 6 times more chips than I did during heads up. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about how women feel uncomfortable at the poker table. I've been playing so long. I've had to deal with so many toxic men. It doesn't bother me. But I put myself in somebody else's shoes who maybe isn't as seasoned or doesn't have such thick skin. Mm-hmm. He was scowling at me throughout our heads up match, to the point where the rail was worried about my safety. Mm-hmm. I ignored him. I looked down at my chips. I looked at the cards. I knew he was staring at me. I knew that he wasn't trying to get information, because somebody had told me that he had said to them that he stared at women to make them uncomfortable. So I knew that he was doing that. He was staring at me and then he'd glance glance down at the table and then go right back to me. He was just trying to intimidate me. It didn't work. I didn't care, but the rail said it was really, really, it was not good. I ended up taking the lead. I ended up winning almost every pot that we played together. And I was all of a sudden had 6 times more chips than he did. And I was positive I was going to win. I mean, right. Jim, I was 100% positive I was going to win.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
And he was down to, I think, 7 big blinds. I looked down at king high. I jammed. He had ace high and ended up doubling. And then, there's only 40 big blinds on the table, and he made runner flush 2 hands in a row. And that was it. Yep. And I was so upset because I felt like I said this to the rail. I said, I let womankind, poker players down. I had felt a lot of pressure.
Sure.
It was, personally, I doubt I'll ever have that type of experience again, where if it was another woman I was playing with, it would have been day and night, how I was feeling.
Yeah. And that's what I want to talk about here a little bit, because even if he was less of a jerk, and it sounds like he was a jerk about it, it still wouldn't have actually made it that much better that he was in the event taking the seat that he was. Here, John Somsky, you unmuted there. Do you want to add something here?
Well, I just want to say, Dayanna, I don't think you let women down. I think that man let the human race down. So, you can't control people being a jerk. You can only do what you can do. I mean, it'd be no different than if this had been any other tournament and you happen to come in second place. Of course, that's not your desire. I realize there's more on the line than the victory in this particular case, but I wouldn't be hard on yourself for that. I think, and if he gets this in any way, shape, or form, don't do that. I mean, the whole point is we want people to be comfortable playing poker. And if having a women's event gets women into being able to play poker, just like we have lots of free money events that we play on PokerStars here. And it's because it gets people used to playing poker and invites them into the community. And that should be the goal, not anything else. So I don't know. Kudos to you is what I'm saying.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. And there were a lot of women, I just told my story, but the amount of women that I talked to during the tournament who this is the one tournament they play. This is the tournament that they feel comfortable playing. This is the one they flew in for. I was staying there. I was there for 10 days and played, a bunch of tournaments. Like Victoria was saying, I finally have found a group where we can get the Airbnb and we can share costs and it was an amazing experience. My first actual tournament series that I got to go travel to and play. I mean, it was fantastic. But I'm telling you, it was a crazy experience. It was a crazy experience to go through that. And then just as like a little something that I want to bring up is I was so disappointed that I didn't get the trophy. And that's just a personal thing. That's not, because I don't have a trophy. I don't have a poker trophy. This was going to be my first one. And then I found out they didn't make a trophy for the ladies event.
No.
So nobody got a trophy.
Okay.
And that kind of highlights another issue when I found that out. Because ladies event should have trophies. If you're doing a series and you have 25 trophies, make a ladies event trophy.
It's a little embarrassing that you have to say that out loud, isn't it? I mean, and like some of the ladies events that don't get streamed, like, come on. Like, even if you've got another event going on at the same time, like these are the people that we want to be highlighting for poker media. These are the people we want to have more poker players that are trying to fall in love with the game, look up to and find role models for, and see this place where women are enjoying themselves playing poker. That's what we need. It's so dumb. Hey, I want to echo John a little bit there, because also what's kind of getting sidetracked here is that, I mean, congratulations on your second place finish. That must have been a pretty good score for you. And,
my best score. And when you take, into consideration that I got the bounty,
right,
which was very nice. I got first place money. So that was excellent. I actually think I got $40 more than first place money. But who's counting?
Even better. Yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah, no, seriously, congratulations. I'm not sure if Kim, if you had something to jump in with there.
I was probably going back a little bit, but like knowing that you were the best player must have felt great. And you shouldn't be so, like, in my opinion, disappointed in the results, because it has brought all of this out. It's brought all of this into the forefront, and it's made it a hot topic everywhere. And I think that's only going to make it better in the long run for women. So, and it just, what you described in your last, when you had them out tipped 6-1, and then it just didn't go your way, is like, it's like so what we all experience in poker, and you just wish it wasn't in that event, but it just happened to happen there. And we all understand that. But great job on you. Great job.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much.
So I'd love to finish this conversation by just examining the rules around ladies events, kind of like how can we do this better? So, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot because, like I said, this is something that comes up on the show and within our community quite a bit. I think that it's one of these things where, like I said, you can't really make a perfect rule for who can enter. And so you kind of end up with a circumstance where bad actors are going to be able to exploit any rule that you make. If people want to be jerks, you're not going to be able to stop them from being jerks with rules. It's this kind of thing where just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. I know some men have trouble differentiating between those 2 points every once in a while. So it seems to me that you can't really regulate it effectively. You're going to have people who try to join using whatever definition you allow. They're going to find a way to weasel their way in there and be a bad actor. And so to me, the best deterrent is social shaming. Like, it's actually using not the rules of it, but like letting these people know that, hey, this is kind of an asshole move to do this. Even if you can do it, that doesn't mean that you should. It doesn't mean like you're not making the poker world a better place. It doesn't reflect well on you. It doesn't reflect well on the other people that you're representing there, men, poker players generally. So I'd love, please, folks, challenge me on that, because I'd love to find a better solution than just calling out. I say this all the time when I'm on other people's podcasts too. Let's ostracize assholes. We don't do a good enough job in the poker world of ostracizing the jerks, and we need to let them know that this kind of behavior is not acceptable.
I'm gonna argue that one because I think that including the person that got first place, I think he loved the attention. It doesn't matter if it's bad attention or good. It's like a toddler. You learn. Yep. I have 4 children. It doesn't matter if it's bad attention or good attention. They want attention. And I think the bad actors that purposely, knowing that they're disturbing the women, but still choose to do that, are attention seekers. Mm-hmm. Linda Johnson came out afterwards and she said, it always happens. Just ignore it. Ignore them and they will go away. And I kind of like that route better. But I do think that there are things, because we've been talking about this a lot at Pocket Queens. What can tournament directors do to help? And some of the things that they can do is they could put an organization like, any of the women's organizations, poker organizations, whether it's Pocket Queens, whether it's Quan, whether it's Power Poker, they could do an invitational. Mm-hmm. And there could be a representative at where you go to sign up from that group that just says, okay, you have to sign something that says, I identify as a woman. And, there you go. And it's in print. And the guy who entered our ladies tournament would have never signed this. If you would have put that barrier where he had to sign, I identify as a woman, sign his name, he just wouldn't have done it. And it takes more effort, because then, of course, we as the women and in the women groups, we have to then be part of it. We have to volunteer our time and register people or do it however we want. But that is one way. I reached out to Seminole Hard Rock personally, and I said, I will come and help. If we can try to work together and figure this out, let's figure out a way to have the ladies tournament. Be great if we could change it to women's tournament instead of ladies tournament, but I'll drop that for now. And do it where we don't have to worry about the bad actors, and I'll help you, and our group will help you, and we'll figure it out that way. I don't think it's rocket science. I think there's a way to allow trans women to feel comfortable and play, and to not allow men.
Joe?
I think there's one way. There's only one way that you're going to knock bad actors out from doing dumbass stuff like this, and that's beat them. And beat them in the tournament, and do not let them get up from the table when they come in. Freeze them out and send them on the door. That's the way that they're going to respond. And not
We did that twice, and we did that the first 2 times.
So I'll just say that though you created a financial incentive for everybody, to play poorly for going forward, and I can obviously see why that's the case, but that's what people listen to, is losing, right? Coming in and saying, I couldn't do it, right? His big problem is he thought he had an edge on you, and he doesn't. Clearly he doesn't. Mm-hmm. He's not even close.
No, the women that were there were so good. Like, no.
So what you see in the dying of the light is this belief that men somehow have calculating advantage, and that's been shown over and over and over and over again not to be true. That there is no. I'm a neuropsychologist, so I know a little bit about what I speak. But there are differences. There are no differences in terms of the abilities of men and women across all of the different things that would be, poker skill oriented. And so if you can beat them, they will go away. It's like the opposite of that old movie line. If you beat them, they will leave.
Kim, do you have
it or not?
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's part of why I felt all of that pressure when we were heads up to beat him, because I totally agree with what you're saying, Joe. And it's like, we had to put him in his place. We had to teach him. And even though he still would have cashed, he wouldn't have won. It was just a different thing. But I agree. I think, and we talked about this afterward, no more bounties ever if a man does enter. And the WSOP has the $10,000 buy-in that they discount for women 90%, which keeps the guys like Dave who entered away, because he would never put up 10 times the money. And yeah, there are definitely things that can be done, but it just takes people wanting to listen and wanting to collaborate and wanting to do it. And when the Seminole Hard Rock came out with their next tournament series, they didn't have a ladies event as part of it.
I do want to say just, this is not something that I can fight on the ground. It's you, but consider the fact that by trying to create a rule that keeps men out, it makes it look a little bit like you're scared that they will come in and win. But the problem is not that you can't win. The problem is that they make it such an uncomfortable, terrible place to play that women don't end up feeling comfortable. That's the purpose of the women's tournaments, as I understand why going forward. To a certain type of man in that situation, those sort of things say, I'm better than you and I should be able to come and play because you're making it difficult for me to get in. There may be a benefit, I could be wrong, but to just saying, okay, go ahead. If you want to be much of a jerk, we're going to show you how bad you are and take the money away from you. And that's something they'll listen to, because they don't want to be embarrassed in front of all the women, because that kind of guy, parts of their anatomy shrink up when they get beat by women. They just can't manage it at all. And that's very difficult for them. So
you say that, and that's what I really thought also. And when he busted the first time, I thought it's over. Okay, we showed him he's not good. He couldn't beat us. But he came back.
Right, because he had to overcome that, right? Because it was a shaming event for him. And so he dropped 3 buy-ins, 3 bullets, and probably would have lost again and again if you wouldn't have bountied him, right? To the point that people made some fundamental mistakes in the hopes of winning a bounty in a non-bounty tournament, right? So, and again, I totally get, I would have done it too. I'd have been like, I'll throw $1,000 on the bastard and get rid of him.
Oh, everybody had the best intentions.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. For sure.
But he kept rebuying, and I bet you he would have buried his bank account to get back into that tournament until such time as he couldn't, in order to get rid of the shame he was feeling, which he shouldn't, but that's what he was feeling, and that's what was bringing him in, and that's why he's acting like a complete jerk. I wanted to use a worse word, and staring at you like some sort of sociopath to try to win, because he was bothered that he was losing to women. And that's why I think if you can just say, okay, come on, but we're going to beat you, you'll have a lot more success in terms of driving people away because they won't want to play. Particularly if you dance on their chips when they bust out and say,
Kim, you've been waiting patiently. What was on your mind?
No, I'm listening to everybody. Everybody's got really good points. But I think that these kind of guys are just looking for the attention. And in today's world of all of this Twitter and social media, they can get the attention immediately. They can get instant gratification when the attention comes back in. And I think that to Linda Johnson's tweet, that it was let's just ignore them. Let's just make them nothing. They are nothing. They don't mean anything. They're just another buy-in in the tournament, and they don't mean anything. So I think that really had validity. I don't think we can ever really keep men out of women's tournaments, and I don't know if we should try. I mean, there's also, Dayanna, I liked your idea about having invitationals, but having people sign as identified for women, it leaves out non-binary people. It leaves out a section of people that should be allowed to play. So I do like the invitational aspect, whether it's just we belong to this group and now it's an invitational. Somehow that could work. Somebody said, let's put a 100K event and discount it. Well, I thought I heard somewhere that Nevada can do it, but it's not legal in other states because it is based on the law of ladies' nights at bars, and some states have outlawed ladies' nights at bars because of date rape things and things happening with those. So those are outlawed. So it's a very difficult thing, and I think to make it bigger is wrong. I think to make it smaller is good. And to just do a grassroots movement on our own as women and women's events, and to try and so a guy wants to come into the tournament, okay, come on in, we'll take your money, whatever. We're here having fun. You want to sit and listen to all how we play and all of the rest of it, that's just fine. No big deal to us. And I think that's just the best way to combat it, to be honest.
John Somsky, you typed something into the chat earlier that I want to just mention here. The idea that right now, women who love the game of poker are fighting through these barriers to come and play poker. Wouldn't it be great if just the women who liked to play poker could come and play poker? Why are we making it so that the only women who play poker are the ones that love it so much that they'll come and endure this kind of abuse at the table? So that I just wanted to make sure that, people type in the chat here. Not everyone hears it, but that was such a good point. John, what else is on your mind before we wrap this up?
I just really liked what Dayanna said, that he basically was acting like a 4-year-old. So if we could come up with a punishment, I think sending him to his room without any supper and grounding him for a month would be appropriate.
I like it.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yeah.
You actually make a very good point, John, because other things that people have said, besides making it an invitational, and absolutely, Kim, I agree with you. We have to make sure non-binary women are non-binary community is, fully accepted. I'm a huge ally, and that would definitely, I would never want to set a barrier for that. But what other people have said is that casinos and tournament directors and the floor, they have pretty wide discretion over punishments. And if we just opened the women's tournament and didn't question anybody's gender, but there was someone who came in like Dave and made toxic, misogynistic comments that were then reported to the TD, couldn't the TD say, okay, you're going to be banned for the next month from the property, or you're going to have X punishment because you went against what was, you purposely went against what was supposed to be this inclusive, wonderful experience for women. And instead you made it toxic. You made it about yourself. You made it misogynistic and have them have a punishment. I don't think they'll get sent to their room, John, but I think you could ban them.
Yeah. This was actually something, this came up in the YouTube chat. So this is one of the reasons I love it when folks come and join our YouTube chat live on Monday nights at 7:30. It's free and you can win a prize. And we get all this feedback from the people typing in here. Some great folks in the poker world. Naomi Pizzol, who I know is also a board member there. But we had her first. She was a RecPoker member a long time ago.
We love Naomi.
Slammer E is making some really good points in here. Evil Roy Slade, our man Dave here, has some good comments about shame as well and the power of that. So there's some really good suggestions in here. And those sort of suspensions by the venue was one of them as well. Because they do have some power. The venues have the power to make arbitrary decisions, executive decisions about how to handle this kind of stuff. So I know there's a lot of regulations about, how tournament directors can discipline players in a tournament under TDA rules, but venues can still make bans on their own private property, and they can, enforce whatever other kinds of discipline are allowed to them, which is a pretty wide rope, to be honest with you. So I think that's a really interesting point. Danny, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about tonight? We went on long, but I love it. This was such a good conversation, and we don't have to stop, but if it feels like we're at kind of a good place, is there anything else that you feel like we're missing out to add some nuance or context to this conversation?
No, I just wanted to my fellow pocket queens who are in the chat. Thank you for finding in tonight and listening. And Jim, just thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. It's such an important issue. We need to get the numbers up. It's just not, it's currently just too many toxic stories from women poker players. We just gotta figure out a way to punish the bad actors and to encourage more and more women to participate, because it's an amazing game.
It really is. And it's big enough for all of us, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, I agree with what Victoria was saying earlier. I think that the pendulum is swinging. I think that change is in the air. I'm pretty sure you guys are going to hear from a couple other podcasts about it, talking about this issue. And I think the more we talk about it, like we were saying in the YouTube chat here, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So the more people having this conversation, hopefully the more people are feeling comfortable taking that step. And thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. I know this was a very personal experience for you. So be able to talk about it with strangers here, and our thousands of listeners are going to get to know the intimate details of your poker stories. So it was our pleasure to have you on and to talk to you about it here. I hope this is the last chance we get to connect.
Thank you so much, Jim. And thank you, panelists. I appreciate all of you.
All right, well, we're going to get into some home game results and wrap up today's show, but feel free to just hit that X, Dayanna. And again, don't be a stranger. We'll connect again soon. So that was a really good conversation. I'm really glad we took a little extra time with that. Feels like a great subject that's worthy of nuanced conversation. And I like that we got some pushback within the discussion and also from some of our YouTube chatters as well. It's just like the forums edition of the podcast. It's the conversation's better when people disagree, and you can disagree respectfully, and that's how we get closer to truth. You have to find that middle ground, and that's how we get better as people too. So disagree. I wish more people would disagree. Okay, we are going to start doing our food bank drive. I should just remind folks, start typing the words start typing the words food bank into the YouTube chat. And that's just our way of raising awareness for food insecurity. Food insecurity exists on a spectrum, and lots of people that you might not think need help probably do need a little help every once in a while, putting food in their bellies or in the stomachs of their children. It's hard right now for a lot of people. And the best way for you to make a difference is by donating some time, money, or some non-perishable food items to a food bank near you. And if you just pull out your phone right now and Google food banks near me, you'll find a few organizations that you can help with that support. I want to just direct folks to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino website. If you go to runaces.com, you can find all sorts of details about some new fun poker events that they've got coming up. And speaking of fun poker events, we've got a whole week of home game winners to get through here. John Somsky is going to take us through the latest slate, and then Chris Jones will pull out the dice of infamy, and we will find out who is going to be our food bank prize winner this week. John Somsky, take it away, sir. Yes, we got him, folks. We got him. You pulled the Somsky. He's muted. There he is. All right. Thank you, my friend.
Okay. First, we have Digging 8 Braves. Chris Simonu won the No Limit Hold'em Championship Series for his very first No Limit Hold'em Championship victory of the year. We also have Bruce, and that means that Bruce Kafer still is leading in the POY points race by almost 10 points.
Wow, that's a big one. Almost halfway through the year, too.
Yep. Evil Roy CA got his third nightly victory for the year, which also means he has now 52 victories and is extending his lead in the most home game victories.
Oh, my God. He's a machine.
The Mayor is back, got his first nightly victory for the year. DJ Voyer, Mark Wittig, got his first nightly victory for the year. And Now Then KB got his third nightly victory for the year. Stewie 13, Stuart Carriage, got his fourth nightly victory for the year. And a really mad guy, got his first daily mixed victory for the year. Rozzy Q, Rod Squarto, won the 8 a.m. international tournament. BD, and that's Central Time, the only time zone that matters. And BD Under got his or her first nightly international victory for the year. Then
BD Under is not public?
No, it's not public.
Oh, well, congratulations, sir or madam, that I know very well, on your recent RecPoker home game win.
You can ask them if they would like to share that information. I will be more than happy to say things. Then we have Denise Aces. Denise Allen won the LPP event, so she can contact Jim at rec.poker for her free month at Learn Pro Poker.
I'm looking forward to that. We actually, Denise and I are emailing back and forth. She's been doing her own study group with some other members, and she's got some great plans for helping people learn more about poker and for getting more involved with RecPoker. So it's funny. People start getting more involved in RecPoker, and then boom, just like that, they're winning the home game. It happens with remarkable, other than you, Joe. Sorry, I shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I never win. But I do want to point out that Denise, as my understanding, played the Peel for the first time. I was there, and I'd like to take credit for everything she learned from my lovely description of all the hands. But there's just so much, to be involved in terms of to have opportunities to expand your game. You're exactly right that it leads to improvement for most people who are not named Joe Goulas. Continues to lag behind. So.
That just means you're due, Joe. And the contributions you're making to RecPoker are great. So I think you're storing up a few of these wins. Maybe a back-to-back weekend, a silver pin or something. I feel like it's in you.
Everything I've learned from RecPoker about poker means that you don't store squat. It's continue to make you realize that that it doesn't even out at some point. So.
That is true. That is true. Well, I think we're going to do our die roll soon. Although if we don't get a couple more people typing into the chat, it's going to be a pretty short roll. Let me see what else. Okay, the last thing I will mention, then we do have to roll on out of here. We've got a tournament of champions starting right now, and another meeting coming up to talk about what's coming up for the future of Rec Poker. But Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night in May, June, and July, each month is its own leaderboard. You can win points by just playing in the Rec Poker home game like you would normally for free on Tuesday nights. You're going to get points towards a $1,000 buy-in package to a Run Good event later this summer. That's sponsored by 100K Studios, who we're excited to be collaborating with for this. So there's details you can find out on the Tuesday home game event at rec.poker, or you can just go to 100K Studios and check that out. Chris, it looks like
I don't have a one-sided dice, so
this is amazing. So we're giving away these prizes. There's only one.
But I'm gonna offer again, because Pocket Queens was so wonderful to come in, and I believe that one of the things that was suggested was making a donation to help people kind of start. So since it's only Naomi, every time I'll donate $10 to Pocket Queens until we roll the one. $100 maximum, okay?
Well, are you not claiming which dice I get to use? Do I get to use the 100-sided dice, or which dice?
Use whatever dice you want, but it's $100 to match. This is why I learned. No. Chris will try to screw me no matter what with these dice.
All right, well, I got a good feeling for Naomi's chances to win a great prize, and I think unless Chris rolls a 1 right off the bat, which is kind of my specialty, so
and I'm going to get so booed off the floor if I get a 1 on the first roll. I mean, that's bad form, right?
I love this, Joe. Thanks, man.
It's a 3. It's a 3.
All right,
so
that's a 3.
I did it. This is like the craps table where everyone's cheering for you to not roll.
Yep.
Okay, that's a 5. That's another 5.
Excellent.
5. I mean, that's a good number.
Jim, what are you doing putting another finger up?
That's a 3.
3s and 5s only so far.
That's a 6.
Oh, closer.
That's a 6.
Uh-oh.
It's amazing how many
and that is a 1.
Okay.
All right.
$60. I'll donate $60 to Queens. Jim, just send me what the information was. I couldn't find it on the website. So
I will. No, so I'll get in touch with you, Joe. Joe, thanks so much for all your continued support of these fantastic causes that we have on here, whether it's our own food bank drives or the amazing causes that our guests represent. I just think that's great. It's such a great example for the rest of these bums in the YouTube chat. Come on here, folks. Come and all you got to do is type the word food bank in and you get an amazing prize. So I hope you get a chance to.
There's a bunch of people still watch. I don't know. People just not feeling like typing, I guess.
Don't like prizes.
I just think it's important to have women coming in and continuing to beat the crap out of me in poker. I mean, it's just something that just should continue. So.
It's an experience everyone should enjoy a lot. Let's just bring the full fold into it.
Well, it's an experience that all Rec Poker members do enjoy on a regular.
We just need to welcome more people into beating Joe, basically.
That's right. Oh, fantastic.
I have one thing to say. Can I say one thing?
Of course.
That I wanted to talk about my empowerment group a bit when they were in there and talking, but we had so much to cover that I didn't have a time. But when I was running the empowerment group and having my meetings, it was great, but it was all you guys. And I didn't have any women coming to my empowerment meetings. And that's one of the main reasons I've stopped having them. So if there's any women out there in Rec Poker that want to get these going again, just let me know and we can start getting them going again, because I appreciate you men and I appreciate that you are all for women in poker, but the empowerment meetings were full of men and not women. There was me and my guest.
Yeah, so folks, if you don't have to be a premium member to join Kim's empowerment group. If you're a community member, if you've joined for free and you think that this is a worthwhile conversation that you'd like to contribute to, Kim's a fantastic member of our Wrecking Crew leadership crew here. And she has a lot of power in our group here to make the poker world a better place. And please do come on and join our conversations. Message her in the Rec Poker forums or a DM in the website and come and get more involved. We would love for more women players to get more involved here at RecPoker, 100%. And I just want to say, Naomi, so you did win the prize this week. So send me an email, Naomi, jim@rec.poker, and we'll figure out the details about getting you connected with your prize. Okay, folks, I think we did it. Did we do it? I think we did it. Thanks, everyone, for a really good conversation, particularly Chris, John, Joe, and Kim. Of course, Victoria and Dayanna were fantastic guests tonight. I have to thank the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, everyone in the YouTube chat, but mostly you, the listeners, that you are what gets us excited about this. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next week.